It used to be that when a new console generation comes out, you had to rebuy all of your games. This has always been tremendously inconvenient. Sometimes you think, well, I want to play the game now, even though a new console comes out and the definitive edition of this game is going to be out in maybe a month and a half. Yes, instant gratification isn't always the best thing. However, we are also talking about waiting for a month and a half to play a game that everybody's playing now, and sometimes that just sucks. Well, things are changing. PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are going to be offering free upgrades. What exactly does that mean, though? Is there a catch? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, PlayStation 5 versus Xbox Series X, free upgrades explained. So, like I said, times are changing. In truth, the console manufacturers are having to kind of understand that in order to keep people on these walled garden type platforms, some concessions need to be made. Also, at the same time, while we are absolutely seeing some pretty drastic improvements in graphics, it's not as if the previous console generation looks bad. It used to be that when we had a new console generation, it represented such a jump that it seemed impossible. Well, it kind of seems possible this time around, even though it's impressive. Like, that's not to say it isn't a big jump. It's just, Uncharted 4 still looks good. And yeah, ray tracing is going to make a huge difference, but it's not the same thing as saying, hey, the new consoles can do 3D graphics. Like, you're stuck in 2D on that last generation. Let's try the 3D. You know what I mean? Big jump, not as big. All I'm saying. It makes sense to start doing something that is honestly really consumer oriented. In fact, I would say I'm really impressed with the fact that these companies are kind of competing for consumers. Like, they want to actually have the better experience. It's always nice when you see that happen, because it's honestly a little bit rare at this point. Thankfully, though, it does look like we're actually getting a decent situation here. If you buy a game on this generation, you're not stuck with it in the next generation. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the catch? Can I just buy all of the games now, play them now, and when I buy a new console, play them there with better graphics? Not quite. We obviously still live in an exploitative economic system, and unfortunately, that's not going to change anytime soon. So it's not just a simple, straightforward, everything is easy and you get everything situation. Now, some games on the PlayStation aren't going to have free upgrades, like Control. Control is a multi-platform game, and the publisher, 505 Games, was kind of vague about this, but they said, as of today, we can't offer an upgrade to everyone, and leaving any one group out feels unfair. Now, it probably has something to do with the fact that they're bundling their DLC with the base game as a definitive edition. However, it's also kind of confusing, and it also just flat out sucks that they're not giving Control players an upgrade for free. Similarly, there's some confusing stuff about Spider-Man Miles Morales, where if you buy the game on the new platform, you get both the base game remastered and the Miles Morales content. If you buy Miles Morales on PS4, you do get a PS5 upgrade, but it doesn't apply to the base game. And the base game itself, you can play on the PS5, however, is not the remastered version. Again, a little confusing. It's not going to be smooth for everything, is basically what I'm saying. But it's definitely better, I would say, than previous generations. But before we get into exactly what that means, let's talk a little bit about how. Now, the PlayStation 5 has pretty much seamless backwards compatibility with PlayStation 4. So a lot of the games you do buy now will absolutely just flat out work on the PlayStation 5. However, some of these games will be able to be upgraded to the PlayStation 5 version. So you'll see things like frame rate improvements, ray tracing, all of the stuff we just talked about, and more. Exactly what you do see does heavily depend on if you're simply doing backwards compatibility or if the game is upgradable, but again, more on that in just a moment. It does not matter whether or not you have the disc version or the digital version. If you have games that are on this list, you're gonna be able to just flat out go ahead and upgrade. Now, if you've got the disc version on the PlayStation 4, you just put the disc into your PS5, go to the Game Hub, select the upgrade, and select download. After it's done downloading, you can play the game by inserting the PS4 disc. However, you will need to keep the disc. Don't just throw that disc out the window, you need it. It's basically the same process if it's digital, however, you don't need to keep a disc around. I think that's kind of obvious given it's a digital copy though. Now, the Xbox version of this process seems just a little bit more intuitive, let's say. It's called Smart Delivery, and basically if you buy a game on any of the platforms and insert it to any of the platforms, it will do the thing. That's it. You get the best version of it that that platform can handle. If you buy the game on Xbox One, buy an Xbox Series X, download the game on that, it's going to be the Xbox Series X version. Same goes for if you put the disc in, it's going to download the 4K assets and play it that way. A little easier and seems to have a much more wide compatibility list. Again, we'll talk about that later. Now, for the most part, what I just described with the Xbox Series X is that you essentially get the best version possible for the platform that you are playing the game on, which is great. I think that that is exactly what should happen. Now, it's a little bit different on the PlayStation 5. We already discussed the upgrade process, for instance. However, with backwards compatibility, there's also something called PS5 Game Boost. For instance, let's say that you get Ghost of Tsushima on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 4 Pro. This is a title that is capped at 30 frames per second on those consoles, and when you upgrade it to the PlayStation 5 version, it will no longer be capped, it will play at 60 frames per second. And holy crap, frankly, that is a beautiful game at 30 frames per second, and not even something that I really feel like I have to complain about. But at 60 frames per second, people have simulated this on YouTube, and it's not necessarily exactly what it's going to look like on the PlayStation 5. However, it is a big improvement. I really cannot wait to play the game in that manner. Now, as far as upgradable titles, we are looking at a pretty extensive list. So it's not as if it's terribly limited and you're stuck with Game Boost for everything. Some of the biggest hits are on there, like Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This brings it up to a 4K game, which is, oof, Witcher 3 at 4K is so nice. But we're also looking at a lot of different versions of games that are coming out just on the border of the transition between these platforms. For instance, Cyberpunk 2077 will have the free upgrade capability, which, thank you very much, exactly what I want. You'll be able to upgrade Doom Eternal, Hitman 3, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, Watch Dogs Legion, Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's a long list that I can't actually just read out to you because it would take too long. If you are interested in that full list, Push Square has that, which is great. That's a good thing, because frankly, the limited upgrade capability is kind of dwarfed by Smart Delivery on the Xbox, in my opinion, so it better be extensive. It's good too, because some of the exclusives that the PlayStation 5 is getting will also be getting the PlayStation 4 version, including Spider-Man Miles Morales and the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, Forbidden West. And that's even a little bit into the future, should be coming sometime next year. It's good to see that there will still be some support for PlayStation 4, that people who are waiting on the actual console upgrade won't be screwed out of the upgrade or be stuck playing on a platform that they ultimately don't want to use anymore. Especially having that backwards compatibility so that one way or the other, you can just play your games on the new console without having multiple consoles plugged in is very nice. Now, for me, the implication here is that the easier experience is going to be the Xbox. Smart Delivery is exactly what you would want, in my opinion. Just the idea that you buy the game and that's it. You've got the game on all the platforms that they run. That's exactly how it should be in an ideal world. So big props to Microsoft on that decision. Frankly, they have done a lot in the last couple of months to try to really pull a fast one on PlayStation. Understanding how this is going to work, honestly, like the Xbox thing is superior here. Now, does that mean Xbox is going to be the superior console? Not necessarily. It may be that the load time difference in the ridiculous SSDs on the PlayStation 5 more than makes up for the slight inconvenience of having to press an upgrade button. I don't know. There are clearly advantages and disadvantages to both consoles, pros and cons to consider. However, it's good to see that they're actually doing things to attempt to compete. Ideally, both of the platforms should be putting their best face forward. And hopefully a lot of the developers are taking into account what they need to patch, what needs to change in order to accommodate the two different platforms' upgrade and backwards compatibility capabilities. Frankly, I would like to be playing some of the games from this current generation as their definitive edition when that inevitably comes out. Are these massive companies going to allow us to do that kind of an upgrade with what was previously an incredibly lucrative business move in re-releasing a game with a little more content and better graphics on the next platform generation for full price? We shall see. What do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.